Oh, wow, we're here.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen who have joined us on this Dr. Fundi channel via multiple social media platforms: Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and also the Dr. Fundi website. Welcome. I'm the host of this channel. It's a channel that we use to have discussions or conversations about matters that are of importance health-wise. But we also use the very channel to showcase people who are doing great things in their chosen, fields or professions. So during the month of August, one of my guests was Miss Nosipo Damasan, the CEO of Prasa Rail. So today, she is a spectator. I'm hosting her daughter, Uaya Damasan. Those who know her very well, they just call her Abu, you know, but her full name is Ayabulela Damasan. Now, Abu, welcome to the Dr. Fundi channel, but I want you to tell us, Ayabulela means they are thankful, all right?
Yeah.
Who are we talking about? Who are these people who are thankful? Ayabulela, yeah?
Well, hello, everybody. Before I dive right in. Well, my full name was supposed to be Ayabulela Manguni, but that never made it to my birth certificate.
Yeah, okay.
um, but my clan name is actually Endlodlo Empangazita Qhubungela Qhwala Qhwala Ngedolo kuphela.
Nantok.
So that's the
Yeah. So Amanguni are thankful that they got this gift from the one above. That gift that is called Ayabule. Right? Is that the only name that you have, or you got another name? During our days, our parents they wanted to conform to Christianity and other things. So they would give you, if you are lucky, a Venek name, and also give you an English name, which they would call a Christian name. But I see that that has gone away. Most people now, they just give kids Venek names. So do you have any other name besides Ayabuler?
Actually, up until the day I was born, my name was Princess.
Yeah.
So on my ID it reads Ayabulela Princess Damasan.
Okay, that's good. That's good. So uyinkosazana in the Venek, in the Xhosa Venek, or even in Zulu, uh, you know, that's a princess is I think inkosazana. But anyway, let's get on to the business of today. So, but just for the viewers, we've got mom to Ayabulela. We have agreed that she will not interfere with the conversation. She's going to sit there. She's going to listen. Maybe at a certain point, I might even ask her to just, come back. But for now, this is time for Ayabulela. Time for Abu. She had her time in August, and this is today time for Abu.
My
So,
turn.
yes, it is your turn. So, just tell us a little bit about yourself, as in, you know, where were you born? Where did you grow up? Are you the only child? Do you have siblings? Are you the firstborn? Are you the lastborn? Are you the middle child like me? A little bit just to get to know the family that you were born into
Yeah.
quickly. Yeah.
Well, I'm now 21 years of age. But I was born in East London, Eastern Cape, East London. And I'm the last of three children. I have my older sister who's more like my second mom because of
Yes,
how our
deputy
age gap
parent.
is.
She's a deputy parent.
Yes, that's exactly it. She's a deputy parent. I think it's the age gap. So I think she's like when I was born, she was like, "Oh, my firstborn, but my sister."
Yeah. So you the last born.
I am. I'm the last of three.
All right. So there are certain behaviors that we normally associate with the position that one holds in a family. All right. And I'm going to ask you if maybe you also featuring in that kind of situation. If you are a middle child, you tend to behave this way. If you are a firstborn, you tend to behave this way. So are you a typical lastborn? Let me tell you what they say about lastborns. Ne? They tend to be social. They tend to be charming. They tend to be outgoing. They tend to be uncomplicated. They tend to be manipulative. You see now, I didn't go to these schools of yours. They tend to be manipulative. They tend to be attention seekers. They tend to be self-centered, but all of it, they tend to be fun. Now, that's what they think about lastborns, as opposed to the firstborns who are perfectionists. They tend to be achievers. They tend to be leaders. They tend to be bossy. They tend to be responsible, motivated, conscientious, controlling, cautious, and reliable. So I've just given you that. And for people like me who are middle borns, adaptable, independent, go between, people pleasers, can be rebellious, feel left out, peacemakers, and socialites. So which of those do you actually fit in?
I mean, I'm a music student and a performer, so I think the last born one definitely is me. I think I'm a typical last born. I mean, by the time I was born, you know what they say, by the time you have the last child, parents are tired. So so I was spoiled, very much attention seeking. So I think I fall into the last born category personality.
Are you manipulative though?
I don't know how to answer that question.
Or I should ask mom later whether you are manipulative or not.
Not in a malicious way, but I definitely tend to get my way in a lot of things.
Lovely. At least I'm happy that you are conscious of how your position in the family has defined you, which is very good. So you the last born of a family of three, and are you all girls or there's a boy somewhere?
So my brother is the middle child, and he is 100% middle child, very, very much peacemaker. He's very attentive. He's very, he's definitely more of the middle child personality. And definitely he calms us down a lot, because I think my sister, my mom, and I are quite outgoing and very loud and fun and excitable. And
but
then
also
he's very...
And strong personalities. Your mom has got a strong personality, and I think you've taken a lot from her as well.
Yes, definitely. I think both my parents actually have very strong personalities, so it was inevitable, unfortunately.
Okay, all right. So Abu, we are here today to actually, talk about a situation that you went through now about a fortnight ago. Maybe before going there, let's quickly go through, where did you do your schooling? Just junior and senior quickly.
So I started off at Merrifield in East London, which is a small private school in East London.
Yeah.
And then in my grade 4 year, I went to Woodridge College in Port Elizabeth.
Yeah.
And I think they definitely were my surrogate parents there. I met a lot of my sort of surrogate parents in that school. Because as you know, my mom, she's a traveler, she works a lot, and my father was very much, is, very much, a hard worker, that type of thing. So I think I was raised a lot at Woodridge College, and I learned a lot about myself in that institution.
Beautiful, beautiful. So, and then did you get your matric at Woodridge?
Yes, I did.
All right. And as you were, going through your schooling years, what did you want to be?
Well, I mean, I've always wanted to be an actress. I think that's something that I still definitely want to pursue. But yeah, I always wanted to be in the arts. I think I was just like born into it. It's a very pretentious, very generic thing for most artists to say, but young when you're an artist. So I think that's why it's the typical answer of like, I was born into this.
Yeah. What
But
did you
yeah, I've always
do?
wanted
I
to
mean,
do that.
did you participate in any performing artistic stuff, in church or school or plays or whatever in your schooling years?
I actually did a lot of plays. I also I did a lot of plays in at school, and I only actually started singing. I think I only started singing in grade 11, and I only knew that I could sing probably in grade 7, because up until then, people used to be like, "Oh, I mean, she can act, but don't let her get in front of the mic." And now here I am studying music, so I
Right.
guess they were wrong.
Yeah, but all right. So you knew that you want to do something in the performing arts space, right? Good. And then came grade 12, you needed to apply to institutions of higher learning. So what decision? Were you confused, or you still thought this is what I want? Was there any gentle persuasion by the parents to a particular direction, or you were very clear, this is what I want, and no one is going to change me?
I For a while in high school, I was actually quite good in accounting. So that was something that I was going to study because music and drama didn't seem practical.
But that's like
But
following your mom.
I know that was, and I think that was also the reason that I had decided that that was maybe the route I was going to go. I look up to my mom a lot, and I mean, how it's it's easy to look up to my mom. I mean, you know her. So I looked up to her a lot, and I thought, okay, if I'm gonna start practical and then maybe go into this arts thing, I should do accounting. I mean, I'm not bad at it, and I I can do it. But I just once you get bitten by the acting and the arts bug, I feel like you can't really let it go. So I fought. It was not easy, and it was proving myself. It was, I guess, spreading myself very thin, doing so many projects. I did, plays, I directed plays, I did backstage for plays, and I performed, for the school, like representing them in different ways, musically as well. So in order to kind of prove to my mom that this is something that I want, and it's something that I can do, and it's something that I can pursue.
I can make a career out of.
Yes, because you see me, I'm doing all these things, I'm busy all the time, and it's with this passion of mine, which is the arts as a whole.
But how did she accept your final decision that you are not following this academic thingy into accounting and all those mainstream type of courses?
It was when I performed at a school function. And the school had actually made me change my flight home, because at that point I was living in Durban and schooling in Port Elizabeth, so I was boarding. And I had to call my mom and say, "Hey, mom, the school needs me to perform at this thing for the school to kind of represent the school, and I need to change my flight. And I think when she watched that performance that night, she actually had come down, like surprised me by coming down to watch, because she was like, "What is this fuss? Why am I changing flights? What's going on?" So she came down and surprised me and watched the show. And that was when she was like, "Okay, no, she can do this. I can comfortably put her into a school where she's gonna do this for, you know, her life and as a career."
What did it mean to you to have her there watching you? Were you aware that she was there watching?
I saw her, I think 5 minutes before I went on. And it almost excited me, but it also scared me, because she rarely comes to these things, because obviously she works and she travels.
Her work commitments, yeah.
Yes. So she rarely comes to these things. And so when I saw her, I was like, "Oh no, okay, I have to do really well today because she's watching." And so I went out there and I just went for it. And I even remember my vocal coach, and he also played piano for me a lot. He sort of was very surprised by my performance as well. He was like, "You've never sang it that well." And I was like, "I have people that I need to prove myself to." So yeah, and that, I mean, it was crazy for her. It meant everything that she watched. Because she doesn't do it often, so when she does, it means more.
Beautiful, beautiful. And so that was your ticket to the career that you wanted. And so you applied, and I mean, for music and acting and stuff like that, you don't go to the mainstream universities to do that. There are special academies to do that. So where did you apply to do this thing?
So I applied to AFDA, and AFDA, it's a film and music school. So they have sort of different streams that you can specialize in, and so I chose music. And the application process was quite fun. But I that's where I applied, and I'm actually quite happy there.
Beautiful. I know of somebody that I interviewed with her mom about 2 months ago, or a month ago, right? During the same August. She is now an is it animator? Animator, yeah. But she studied at AFDA, and then went and did something in France. But her grounding, her foundation was at AFDA. All right, let's move quickly. So you are at AFDA. What year are you doing now?
In second year.
You are in second year. Can you give us an idea? What did you do in first year? Well, I want us to get to the performance that you've done recently, but I want us to have an idea of what you did in first year, and also what are you doing now, and that performance, which is the reason why you are here. Then we'll get in there and go deep.
Okay. Well, in first year, you kind of do a little bit of everything. So music is in live performance side of AFDA. So you do live performance for one semester, and then you either choose film or TV for a different semester. If you want to do music. And so I did film, and so I was able to kind of dabble in other sides of the industry. Like I did costume makeup and styling, which is where I learned to do all of, my makeup and my hair and all that. And and I got to touch on different sides that also helped me when I got to music. And then when I was in music, you work in groups when you're in first year, because you're starting out and they don't actually know what you're capable of. So they're just learning more, I guess, about you, and you're also learning more about what you would like to see on stage before they say go and create your own project. So that was kind of the experience of my first year. I spent time doing film, and I spent time doing performance.
All right. Second year, they changed gear now.
Yes.
It's no longer work, it's more individual.
Yeah, so at the beginning of the year, we were actually told about this project that I just did 2 weeks ago. And we have one-on-one lessons where you just one-on-one with a lecturer. You have one-on-one sessions with a lecturer where you sort of conceptualize this show that you're putting on. And art is always changing. They always say that you don't know what you're going to do on stage and you don't know what your show is going to be about until you're there, because it just keeps changing. Everything keeps changing. I mean, if I had performed the show that I had conceptualized in February, we would be having a different conversation. So you sit and you conceptualize. And I think with this show particularly, I had sort of started off talking about the environment that I grew up in that led to the addiction, rather than kind of tackling the addiction itself, my food addiction. People who
Yes,
don't know.
we're gonna get there. You're moving fast. You know what? I'm taking you slowly forward. All right. The performance that you guys did, or your performance, is it part of your year mark? Is it part of your what is it? Because it seems to be a big thing. You know, just tell us a little bit about the significance of that performance in your second year.
So the reason it's a big thing, I think, is because it's the stepping stone into next year, where we will be doing, like sort of album launches or EP launches, where we basically conceptualize a show completely comprised of our own original songs.
Yeah.
So this is sort of the stepping stone into that. And so they want to kind of walk you through what it's going to feel like next year when you're doing that, by putting on this show. So it's only...
Is there a set time that you must do this for 10 minutes, or you must do it for 15 minutes, or is it 5 minutes? I mean, yeah.
So it's a maximum of 30 minutes. And yeah, like it's essentially this show is only for this term's mark, the term that it just passed. Okay. But we spent so much time sort of creating that it's such a big deal for a lot of the second years. It's a huge deal to put that out.
So how did you choose? You know, it was when I look at the performance itself, it was titled Guilty Pleasure, Confessions of an Addict by Ayabulela. Now, you said you started conceptualizing this thing in Feb. Was this the same topic, or even the topic itself changed from what it was in Feb to what it was by the time you actually delivered the work?
I mean, yeah, in Feb, I had pitched a lot of ideas that weren't this. I mean, none of my ideas were about food addiction, actually. Back at the original conception. It started out as, I guess, my life story, but it didn't have much substance because there was no focus.
And so at what point then did you decide, no, man, I need to be much more, I need to address something that will have an impact. I need to be authentic. I need to tell a story. And this story is going to be around food addiction.
Honestly, lockdown. It was that first sort of 21 days of lockdown where I realized that I actually am talking about coping mechanisms, but I'm not really specifying what coping mechanism I'm reliant on. And so that was sort of the time when I decided that, okay, I actually need to get more specific and talk about my experience and my relationship with my coping mechanism, which is food.
Yeah. All right. So then you settled on a topic. I'm sure you discussed it with your mom. Did she give it a thumbs up or thumbs down?
I only told her about the concept in its entirety, probably a month before the show. Okay. she had no idea. I just told her that I'm creating this show and it's about me. And she was like, okay, well, let me know when it happens so I can, be supportive. She's very sort of supportive of whatever I want to create.
All right.
And
but let's go back though. So you decided you're going to talk about food addiction, right? So now I watched that performance of yours, right? It was titled Guilty Pleasure, Confessions of an Addict by Ayabulel. Your mom, being your biggest fan, she made sure that we, as the people that are her connections, we are aware that there's something big that that Abu is doing or was about to do, and we got all the links and everything, beforehand, and we had to tell her that we will definitely steal time from work to watch the princess, performing. Right. So I watched and I was wowed, okay, by this performance the performance that you did. I was wowed, like really. But also the style. It's a pity we can't show people here, but the style, of how you did it, a bit of music here, but a bit of storytelling here. But the highlight for me was when you talked about, in the story, you talked about you used food as a coping mechanism because of a toxic family environment. Now, that got me like noticing, okay, this is deep. And I switched on and I was like, okay, I am now very interested. I know the mom, and now she's talking toxic family situation. All right. And this led her to actually seek refuge from food. And it led to addiction, food addiction. So I was still waiting for more. But then you just decided to pull back a little bit from taking us deeper into what you had just showed us, right?
Yeah.
The performance was absolutely great, but the message and you coming out to share with the world the real thing that made you to come up with the topic, you didn't give us enough. But this is why you've got this interview today.
Okay.
I want you to really take us into your confidence and just share with us, because when you're saying coping mechanism was food and it was because of a toxic family environment, that then says there was a psychological component here, and this became a coping. But just tell us, I want you to tell us in your own words, maybe give us an idea of, you made this decision, this is the topic, it's going to be about food addiction, but now let's go back. When did this thing start? Take us from there. When did you start to cope in that way? What was happening in the environment? And when you ate food, what did you feel?
Yeah.
That then made you to do it repeatedly to a point where it became an addiction. So please just take us on a journey.
So I'm nervous because I guess I don't know if I have to tread lightly on this topic.
Look, remember this is your story, right? Firstly, not many people actually open up about addiction in general. I'm talking about addiction in general. Whether we're talking nicotine addiction or gambling addiction or drugs addiction, most times people don't talk about it, let
Yeah.
alone food addiction. All right. But you gave it a name, you shared it with the world, and you said it was a coping mechanism that drove you there. So you're going to need to be authentic and share with us your experience. You are not you're not pointing a finger at mom, you're not pointing a finger at dad, but what you are telling us is your experience that led you to this situation and how it progressed from a particular point to a certain point. Then we will move on with that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I was kind of born into this household where my family members were all sort of, except for my brother, who found solace in athletics and sport.
Yeah.
We found, I guess, solace in food. And I guess they were, my mom and my sister in particular had very fluctuating weight from, before I was born, and up until, quite recently, a few years ago. And so it kind of was this culture of kind of mixed messaging of how food should, what your relationship with food should be.
Yeah.
Because there'd be moments where we're eating and we're indulging and we're really just sort of over invested, I guess, eating too much and eating too much of the bad things, and then there'd be this diet that everyone in the household is on, and so this sort of fluctuation created sort of this mixed messaging in
Yes.
what my relationship with food should be.
Yes.
And then with this one aspect, it kind of also married with the environment that we were living in, where I guess we were we were always worried what would happen next. And it's very
Okay.
difficult for me to.
Wait.
Yes.
You're doing exactly what you did there. You just, and then you come back. Let's talk
I
about.
was about to say that it's difficult to do this without pointing fingers, and it's difficult to
Okay.
do this
Oh, that's
without
fine.
bringing
But,
names into it.
okay.
So
But
I'm going to.
you know what? Just share your story. Bazoba
Yes.
strong abazali. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Abazali,
Just share
bazobasifrem.
your story. It's your story. Own your
Yes.
story. They will be strong. They will have to do their own introspection about how their choices affected their children. All right. You are not here to put a dirty linen yabo. Kodwa ke, for you to share your story, you need to say certain things. So, what was this toxic environment that triggered you to seek refuge from food?
So, um, so outside of the mixed messaging and what my relationship with food should be, there was my parents' relationship, which was rocky at best.
Yes.
And obviously within marriages, it's both parties' fault. No one can really ever say that one person did something wrong. But I think one of the big contributing factors for me personally was my father,
Yes.
who he had, anger issues, as well as his own struggles with alcoholism
Yeah.
that projected onto us because he would, I guess, project his anger onto us as a family.
Yeah.
And so that created an environment of fear for us.
Yes.
And he had his own demons that he was battling, which is, of course, how he ended up projecting a lot of his anger onto us as his family. But it created an environment where we were all very scared all the time. And so I was born into this environment where we were all just always scared of what would happen next, what he would do next, what table he would flip next. And it just, I guess,
and
yeah.
From what time, can you remember? You were 4, you were 5, you were 6, when you became aware of this toxicity within the family environs?
My mom said that my mom and many of my family members say I have a very old soul.
Yeah.
And so it's difficult for me to remember, to pinpoint a moment of realization,
Yeah.
because I think I always knew.
Yes.
And I think the other issue that brought upon this coping mechanism and this addiction was that my mom and my sister in particular spent a lot of time trying to protect me. And in this, they hid a lot of things from me that I could see. And so it almost felt like I was going through this alone, as if I was the only one who was seeing what was happening around us. And I was the only one who was genuinely terrified. And so it the protection didn't actually protect me. It almost pushed this addiction along, and it almost pushed this need for an escape along. Yeah.
So this constant fear, what it was fear, and then you would go and eat, and then how would you feel after you've done that? I'm just trying to link now the emotion and the and the drive to that particular coping mechanism.
So I had I had a lot of free reign in the kitchen. There weren't really limitations on what I could and couldn't eat in the house. And so, what started off as like, oh, I can eat whatever I want whenever I want to, kind of turned into this, okay, well, if I'm eating in my room, it's almost an excuse not to leave my room because I'm busy eating. Because there's the culture, of course, of sitting when you're eating. You're not allowed to kind of move. You have to create an environment where you can eat in peace almost.
Yeah.
And so I guess when I was eating in my room, it was the only time that I kind of felt at peace.
Yeah.
Because of the general culture around eating, which is sit down, relax, don't kind of let other people into your eating space unless you're at the table with them.
Yes.
So it was almost like I kind of created this little like temporary Eden, which I said in my show, where I could just eat in peace. And it was the only time where, if someone came in to disturb me or whatever, they'd be like, they'd walk in and be very quick with whatever they needed to tell me because I was busy, essentially. So yeah, I think that was kind of how that started. So like I said, it was a coping mechanism, and it was a way for me to escape. And
from what was happening, the climate
outside of the walls that I built.
Yes. All right. Okay. So just to hold it there, again, just for people to understand that the issue of addiction, like I've already mentioned, that it could be somebody could be addicted to alcohol, to drugs, to nicotine, to gambling, and many other things. Now, just a definition here: food addiction manifests itself in uncontrollable craving for excess food that follows ingestion of refined carbohydrates, primarily sugar and flour substances that are quickly metabolized and turned into sugar in the bloodstream. Due to the uncontrollable cravings, a food addict's quality of life may deteriorate when he or she eats, sugar, flour, or wheat, and this may have physical, emotional, social, or spiritual impact. All right. So, and they tend to have, inability to control the intake of food, especially junk food or high sugar foods, you know, and sometimes that may also be, you know, interspersed with, you know, trying different weight loss programs. Some of those, some, you know, that they, you know, it's like a yo-yo diets and all of that. Sometimes they may even have guilt after they've, you know, eaten food, which would
Yeah.
make them then to maybe take laxatives. Others, they take these things called diuretics. Others induce vomiting, you know, or others exercise a lot to avoid weight gain after they've eaten. Now, I was just trying to, you know, explain, you know, this whole thing about food addiction. Now, but what I want to hear from you, or for you to share, besides the fact that you were not being disturbed when you were in your room and eating and saying you are busy, but at an emotional level, what was food intake? You know, what did you feel when you had taken food? You know, it's like if you know, some people who are addicted to caffeine, which is you find in coffee,
Yes.
they may get to a point where if they don't get their cup of coffee by this time, they get a headache. All right, and the only way for the headache to go away is if they give the body what it wants, which is caffeine, which may be in coffee or which may be in fizzy drinks, some fizzy drinks, which may be in chocolates, you know, and stuff like that. So in that case, it's the headache. And once they've taken the coffee, the headache goes away. Now, in your case, remember you were fearful, you were on the edge because of this climate that you were within. What did food do at an emotional level? What were you feeling?
I think it was because you know when you take in sugar, it's almost like you get this instant endorphin
Yeah,
rush
yes,
thing, and so it would kind of mask the fear
yeah,
temporarily, and
yeah,
so it was like almost, and then when we left this environment, I I realized that I had this addiction because once my parents had separated, and I was able to live with my mom, it would be like my mouth would get dry, or like like my mouth would just start to get really very dry, and it almost that fear thing would come back up even though I had nothing to be afraid of, essentially. And that would sort of lead me to go and get a packet of chips or a chocolate or order a pizza or whatever it was that,
mm,
you know, I craved. But it was very much this like dry mouth, like
yeah,
I'm dying of starvation, even though I'd
yeah,
just eaten whatever dinner I'd eaten.
yeah. Yeah. All right. Now, you know, I'm preparing for this show. I mean, I was just going through some information, and there's information that was shared, you know, in one of the articles I read that some researchers who were doing research on people who've got food addiction, they actually took images or scans, you know, of the brain. And what they found was that once somebody's got that sugar high, you know, the brain is high on sugar, they actually saw that even, you know, the pictures that they got from that were similar to the pictures that they get when people have had cocaine. All right. So that was like sugar and cocaine, similar pictures. That's what they're saying. And but the whole thing about increasing indulgence on food is about the pleasure that you get once you've taken that food, especially the one that's rich in, you know, sugars, and other, you know, forms of carbohydrates, and pleasure has got a profound reinforcing, you know, quality. So you crave the food, you give the body food, all right, and the body feels the pleasure, the brain feels the pleasure, and then and it becomes a vicious, a cycle like that. And so you end up, and again, what I wanna, before you call something addiction, when somebody has an addiction, it means you have got inability to control the intake of a particular thing. So at what point did you now feel, I'm not just eating now I am at a point where I am no longer able to control my intake of food? Yes, it gives me the pleasure, just like even if somebody is using cocaine or dacha or whatever, the body craves it, you give it, and then they feel good about it, and then the next thing starts again. Yeah.
I think for me, when I started to feel like it was more like uncontrollable and very sort of impulsive, was when I would like I would store food in my cupboard, whether it was in boarding school or at home,
Yeah.
and I would, kind of at probably every hour, I would be kind of opening and eating something and then closing and going back and kind of enjoying the feeling of actually eating it, and then feeling guilty, telling myself, okay, no, you shouldn't be eating this, you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be. And then an hour later, it's like I have to go back, even though I know in my head, I'm like, you're not hungry, you shouldn't be eating this, stop it. But it's like this sort of like this itch that you have to scratch. Like I said, the dry mouth thing would happen, and it's like, oh my gosh, I need this, I need whatever it is. And it like started to get very uncontrollable, where I'd go in and I'd like have a bite and then be like, no, stop. And then 10 minutes later, go back. And it was, it was difficult to sort of do it myself anymore. I was like very much struggling with.
So now at
stuff.
that time you were losing control. The food was controlling you rather than you controlling the intake of food. All right. But somebody else will say, you said this was due to a toxic environment at home, but then at the boarding school, most that environment wasn't there. But it started at home, and you got to be addicted. By the time you go to the boarding school, you're already addicted, basically.
Well, that and unfortunately, my boarding school experience was not perfect. And so
Okay.
being overweight and being a girl and being at any institution means that you will encounter bullies of all kinds. So
Yes.
I never really truly escaped
Okay.
toxicity either.
Mm.
So there was of course, people within boarding school, high school, primary
Yes.
school as well, that would tease me and make me feel uncomfortable about my weight, and
Yeah.
once again finding solace in that thing. And so
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. So then there were two stress. There was the stress at home, and there was the stress at the boarding school. So then this was like a 365, days kind of situation, you know. And then it led you to seeking, refuge in food, and you were now at a point where you were no longer able to control your intake of food, although it came with a lot of emotional guilt, and other things. Did you even get to a point where sometimes you would eat and then you feel like you must go and induce vomiting or take laxers or stuff like that, which
um
people with bulimia would normally do?
I was very scared of swallowing tablets until I was 18.
Yeah,
And I also was scared of vomiting,
yeah,
and I still am. I don't like the feeling of vomiting. And
yeah,
so I would sort of binge and then starve myself, and then binge and then starve myself. So that was my way of trying to be like, oh well, if I don't eat, breakfast, and I have a small lunch, then I can,
yeah,
I can sort of feel better about this thing that I did yesterday, where I, ate 3 bags of Doritos, which
yeah,
happened before. So,
yeah.
that was my way
Oh,
of sort of,
yes.
yeah.
And what did this all do to your weight? Because we're gonna get to a point where you decided to take action to confront the addiction and also deal with issue of weight. But as you were getting more and more into, because remember with addiction, you will get that satisfaction at a particular, I would have said, a dose, you know. But as time progresses, you now need more of the same thing to give you the same effect, you know. So over time, therefore, in a food addiction, you'd find that your intake of food, you know, maybe it's no longer 2 Doritos, you know, packets to get the same effect. Maybe it's 3 now, you know. So did you get that kind of thing where progressively over time you were taking more to get the same effect, but also what was it doing to your weight?
Um, I don't think I ever reached the point of it needing more in order to get the same effect,
Okay.
because of how often I was also starving myself as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so that was sort of what would happen. And my weight, I mean, I was always overweight. I think up
Yeah,
and I've always been overweight for as long as I can remember.
yeah.
I've been big, and so
You've been a big girl.
um, yeah, I've been a big girl my whole life.
Yeah,
But
very.
yeah, so because I guess I've been overweight forever. Um, it, I don't know. I obviously there's the self-esteem issues and whatnot, but
Yeah,
I never actually got that fluctuation in weight that other people might have had if they were going through what I was going through,
yeah.
because I wouldn't. I don't know. I guess I wouldn't do things like exercise
Yeah,
or take laxatives or whatever. It would be like missing a meal or whatever it is to
yeah.
feel better about myself and feel less guilty about
Yes.
indulging whenever it was I
Yeah.
did.
All right.
So
Yeah. So, all of this time, is there a time where you then said to mom, "Mom, I have an addiction"? Oh, no one said anything about it, and it was just you realizing, but this was my coping mechanism.
I think everyone around me could see that I was struggling
Yeah,
with food addiction.
yeah,
Um, but I don't and but I don't think they approached me in a way that was conducive to my recovery
yeah,
up until I went and asked for help. And I
yeah,
mean, just for example, it's oh, why don't you do this diet? Why don't you go to a personal trainer? Oh, here's an eating plan. Here's this, here's that. Um, and it was like, you're not helping.
yeah.
Because it wasn't like I said in my show as well, it wasn't always about the food. It was
Mm.
about the feeling, it was about that
I'm
like
gonna ask,
craving that I was trying to satisfy.
I'm gonna ask you, by the way, to do a little bit of what you did. You know?
Oh,
Yes, yes, yes. Maybe it's about. Let's do that now. Let's do that now. Eh? A little bit of take apart. I know it took a little longer, but just for people to have a sense of what the story as you were singing.
do you want me to
Yes.
walk through the story?
No, no, no. Like the performance, not to walk through a little bit. I know the music is not here. The lady who was playing something for you is not here, but just
No.
the lyrics. The words,
Okay.
rapping, or whatever. I don't know what it was. Yeah.
No. Gosh, I'm not sure what to say. Um, yeah. So I mean, I don't know I don't know. Do I go through my script? I'm sorry. I'm not.
No, no, no. Like a bit. If that thing was like 15 minutes, your performance. I'm like saying, like you nearly did it now. That it's not about the food. It's about the feeling and whatever. So I just wanted to just like take an excerpt from
Oh, from the show
us
itself.
to, yeah,
Okay. Well, yes. So I mean, one of the biggest things with food addiction is that it's uncomfortable to go through and feel, because people don't understand how confusing it is for someone to be addicted to something they need to survive. And so it's uncomfortable when people put you on diets and put you through training programs because they think that the food is the problem and not your emotional well-being. And so it's like it's the food, not the feeling, you know, like I said. And and I think one of the other things that I'm trying to think of my show now, because it was now 2 weeks ago and I've had to
Sorry to
kind of resurface everything.
oh,
But yeah,
sorry to
and
just,
so people try to fix the problem without getting to the root of it. And I think that was sort of the message of my show.
yes.
What I
All
wanted
right.
it to.
Yes. So you knew that you were addicted to food, right? At a certain point. And also from your show, you knew that the food thing is just a symptom of an underlying thing, the root. All right. And so at a certain point, you then decided that I want to now seek help to deal with the root and its symptoms. Maybe let's talk about that. You approach your mom.
So yeah, last year when I approached my mom, it was about kind of getting help through, you know, seeing a therapist and dealing with um, the emotional side of what caused my addiction in the first place.
Yeah.
And one of the other things about me is that I'm very motivated by people investing in me.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I asked for last year when I went to my mother was I had sort of asked her if I could go and get a gastric bypass surgery, which was, yeah, it was a difficult conversation to have because of the addiction aspect of this, of sort of the reasoning behind the surgery.
Yeah.
Because there's also, you know, medical complications of like, if you overeat, your stomach can explode, right?
Yeah.
And so because I knew that by asking for this thing, I would be asking my mom to invest in me,
Yes.
I felt like I needed to prove to her that I could do it and that I could, you know, I could give her her ROI, return on investment.
Yeah. You learn, yeah, well, you did accounting most. So yeah. But
So
yeah,
I'm very much someone who wants to give return on investment. I mean, I think of before I started the degree program at AFDA, I did the higher certificate program in film.
yeah.
And it was sort of, I had to go in there and say, okay, I didn't do so well in high school because I wanted to study music and I didn't do any subjects that would contribute to my music. Now I have to go into this film school and prove that this is something I want and this is something that I can do. And so I walked out of HC as valedictorian because I worked so hard to give my mom the return on the investment she had made for AFDA. And so I felt the same need when I went and asked her for the gastric bypass surgery, where I felt like I had to now prove to her that, no, I want this. And so I started to, I guess, chase a different feeling of like proving myself worthy of this, whatever, you know, gift or investment she's made for me and in me, and that she believes in me. So now I have to show her that there's something to believe in. And it allowed me to channel my feelings elsewhere.
Yeah.
And I think the point where I started to deal with the addiction itself was the beginning of lockdown, when I had decided to talk about my addiction in the show. And that's when I started to sort of frequently see a therapist and really dig into the root cause and dealing with that, and now finding different coping mechanisms and finding different ways to move past what I went through back then.
Yes.
And so, yeah, so when I went to my mom last year, I don't think I was entirely dealing with the food addiction as much as I was trying to channel that emotion somewhere else.
Yeah.
In a way.
Tell
Because I
me
had
though,
to now invest myself in this project, which was
tell
this.
me though, at the time that you were approaching mom for this bypass surgery, which basically they reduce the volume of your stomach. There are different techniques of doing that. It's obviously major surgery. It's got its risks and everything, but it's also from a medical point of view. At a certain point, it's actually a consideration. I know of people who, for medical reasons, they actually had to undergo that because of ill health, maybe type 2 diabetes, uncontrollable or whatever, but there are times medically where we actually recommend that somebody does that, especially those people that we talk about, morbid obesity, when a person's body mass index is about 40 and above, But anyway, so you asked for this op. Did mommy give you?
Yes, she did. And the interview process was easy, I think, because I did fall into the morbidly obese section. Because I'm 1.5 meters and
Yes.
I weighed, I think, 140 kilograms when I
Yes.
went in.
Yes. And just for the benefit of the people who are watching, we're talking here the body mass index. All right. Meaning how much weight are you carrying for your height? And the shorter you are, the more you are limited in terms of the amount of weight you can carry. The taller you are, it's a little bit, there's a bit of room, a normal body mass index is from 18 to 25. That's what we call normal body mass index. From 25.1 up to 29.9, we say you are overweight. Okay. Then from 30 and above, we say you are obese. But even within obesity, there's levels, mild, moderate, severe. So morbid obesity is basically when your body mass index is about 40 and above. All right, and that's the time where we then even consider recommending that kind of medical intervention. And I understand it has worked well for you in terms of weight reduction. Can you share with us?
It has helped a lot. I mean, since the op, I've lost about 50 kilograms.
50.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah.
Oh no, yeah. So I'm still sort of in the process of losing and
yes.
and whatever.
But before you underwent the op, did you go through any preparation from a psychological point of view? Because remember now, this is like life-changing stuff, So, or at least after the op, did you get any support from a clinical psychologist?
So before the op, they did a psych evaluation on me.
Yeah.
Before sort of going in as they have to do, I'm sure you know. And afterwards, I did see a therapist.
Yeah.
Sorry, I did see a therapist for a while. I think for 2 months. But yeah, I didn't do it long term. I guess I was still trying to do it by myself. But I guess what helped was sort of after the up being more honest with my mom about why I did it and saying,
Yes.
I'm not just doing it to lose weight. I'm also dealing with this
Deeper.
this addiction, with this deeper seated issue.
Yes. All right. So, how have I mean, reflecting now, before the op and now, at an emotional level, what upside can you point out at an emotional level, besides the fact that you've shed 50 kgs? Yeah?
I mean, honestly speaking, I didn't I didn't really have like the best intentions in personally for going in.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't really about the weight I would lose or anything like that. As much as I would talk about it, it wasn't really the main thing. But I guess from an emotional level, I think I just feel a lot better about myself. When I did a lot more introspection, it's like as I started to lose the weight, like the sort of younger side of me where I was very excitable and bubbly and happy was starting to come back because, you know, I was starting to look in the mirror and like not feel so bad about myself, and I was fine. I was excited about something.
Yes.
Um,
And in terms
yeah,
of the self-esteem, was there any change? How you felt about
definitely.
yourself?
Definitely. I mean, even like outside of how I look, which is, the superficial, everyone talks about that first. They're like, oh my gosh, I can finally wear that outfit, or I can finally buy that bikini or whatever,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
superficial thing. Um, like it was almost like as I lost the weight, I was losing emotional baggage weight, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, because I like I stopped dwelling on the past a lot in the process of losing my weight. And I think that helped so much with lifting the weight off of my shoulders. Was
Yeah.
like, I was now looking to the future. I was now thinking about, the future of my health and my life and career and everything like that. And so it helped me to kind of stop dwelling on what had happened in my past. And I was starting to look forward rather than looking back. And I think that has a lot to do with the surgery because I had to kind of just let the addiction be something of the past
Yeah.
and say, this was me, but it's not who I want to be. And I'm
Yeah.
now actively making an effort to change
Yes.
that.
Yes. But now that is more on the physical side, right? So at an emotional side was like if I ask you now, your relationship with food now, how is the relationship now?
It's still complicated. I want to be very honest. It's still very complicated. Because it doesn't just end. You don't wake up and like
I
stop.
know, I know. That's
You
why I'm
know.
asking because the people who are watching out there, they must know that there was a psychological component from
Yes.
past traumas, and this and that stuff you can trace back. And dealing with those things is not an overnight thing, which is
Yeah.
why it's important that you retain the services of a therapist, and sometimes it may even need a psychiatrist. That combination of two to help you through this journey. It's not a journey that's overnight. It's not a journey that you can go on your own, but the support, non-judgmental support, unconditional support from your family is a good start. You know, yeah, and you are therefore realistic about it that the underlying issue, the root cause that made you to seek refuge, on food, which led to the addiction, it's still work in progress. But at least the intervention on the physical, medical, surgical intervention, in a way, it's helping you through your journey of recovery from the addiction, right?
Yeah. I think, one of the things that I guess really helped for me was forgiving everybody who I had initially initially started pointing fingers at. I think that there's a saying that says, forgiveness is not for the other person, it's for you.
Yes.
Because holding the grudge is only hurting you. It's you're the only one carrying the baggage.
Yes.
And so it really started with like, okay, why am I so mad? Why am I seeking refuge in this thing? And I think sitting down and just praying and forgiving everybody involved, helped a lot when I started to also forgive myself. Because I think, one of the big things is obviously the name of the show was Guilty Pleasure, and we talked a lot about pleasure, and we didn't really, we touched on the guilt as well. And I think I had to really sit with the guilt and forgive myself because, I was a product of an environment and I also made decisions. So I had to take responsibility as well as forgive people who were involved as well. And I think that helped a lot. And that's also what happened in therapy a lot, was like being like, okay, I need to take responsibility for my part, but I also need to forgive the other parties involved because, it is what it is. Life happens.
Yes. And I mean, there's a saying that if you blame everything on others, you are still immature in terms of your approach to a problem. If you take some of the blame, you are on your way to dealing with the problem in a mature way. But if you stop blaming anyone, take responsibility for what you could have done to deal with the situation, that's a mature approach. So what you've just done, as much as you had enough reason to point fingers at the parents, and maybe one more than the other, but that was not necessarily a mature way of dealing with the problem. And now you've decided, I'm not gonna blame neither my dad or my mom, right? There's justification for me to blame them, but I want this for myself, right? And you started taking responsibility for the choices that you made, all right? And that's a good way of dealing with this thing. And on the issue of forgiveness, I went through some life event about 21 or 22 years ago, and your mom is aware of that. Really, basically, it was a divorce situation. I like talking about it because it taught me a lot about who I am, but it taught me a lot about how to deal with a life challenge. It's easy and tempting to actually point fingers, but it's much more difficult to take responsibility and say, what could I have done better? What is my contribution to this situation? Because and as soon as you do that, you start to look at things differently. And I mean, I read books around forgiveness, and one of the books I can remember is by Miles Monroe, which was talking about forgiveness, individual forgiveness, and social forgiveness. So forgiveness is a very, very powerful tool, when you are dealing with issues, and stopping to blame others for a situation that you also had a hand in. It's also a very, very powerful thing. So I'm almost saying, thumbs up, that was the right thing that you did, and I want us to get to another point though. And what is good about what you did is that it's about your journey. You are saying, I now need to focus less on the past and more on my total health, my holistic health, my ambitions, everything that I want to do going forward. And that is very good. But I want to come back though, and I might just ask Umama to come to join in now. Because when we were advertising this show, we said there will also be some learnings for the parents. And because all of this happened because of an environment that happened in the household where you were born. All right. There was a contribution by dad, but there was also a contribution by mom. You know, there were choices that mom made to stay in a situation that was toxic, which might have caused, the harm. So what I'm trying to say is, as parents, sometimes our actions or non-actions, our choices may actually create situations. Sometimes we may not be aware of the impact of the decisions we take or don't take on our kids. And only later we realize that had I taken this particular decision, to walk out of a toxic situation earlier, maybe the impact would have been less. But I was worried about abantu bazotini, what are people gonna say? Or you think you're actually protecting your kid by staying in that situation. Let me keep this marriage at all costs, and things like that. But at the end of the day, there were decisions, there were choices that were made by the parents, and those choices impacted on a child. In fact, not just you, because you talked about your brother who focused on sport as a way of escaping. So I want to bring in mom here, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Right? Nosip. Nosipo.
Doc, good evening to the listeners.
Masibone, man.
Good evening to the listeners, and thank you for.
That was very short. Masibone,
Thank you for letting me in. I am not in a very conducive place.
I
I'm
know
always
it's busy.
I'm always unfortunate that when Abu has to go through events, I am always busy at work. But I guess it's the kind of life that we adopted as a family. And she is quick to remind me all the time that she does not actually regret that is the choice that I've made to be busy, to actually be able to even do the things that we do.
Yes, yeah.
So I think you're making me come in at the level of saying any regrets, any lessons that I took out of this situation, and what could I actually advise parents on.
Yes.
Because I think the one thing that we do well, especially us women, and it happens to men as well, is that we're doing it for the children.
Yes.
Until such time you realize that you're actually not doing it for the children. Bazothini abantu. And number two, coming from a family that is not broken, it becomes very difficult to put your children through a broken family scenario. So I think there was a lot of that in me. The second one is I did see that Abu was suffering from something because of the way she was eating and because of the weight that she was carrying all her life. But as a parent, you are afraid to tell your child that you think they are overweight. Even when you put in these diets, you put them in a certain way because you are afraid that if they think that you don't love them enough, because of maybe the pressure you put them under, because you want them to lose weight, again, to please people, and you also worry about their health, you then end up with suicide and all those things and drugs and stuff like that that come in from self-hate from the child and the fact that they think that their parents are not approving of them.
Yes. Yes.
So effectively, it was very difficult for me to actually say to Abu, she must stop eating.
Yeah.
And when she came to me to say that she's looking for help or she's seeking help, I really jumped at the opportunity.
Yeah.
And timing is everything because she had just gone past the whole teenage stages and everything else. And because she's a very disciplined person, I knew that if I allow her to go through the surgery, she will actually be disciplined around it. Because if you tell her to do something in a particular way, she follows instruction.
Yes.
So I knew if professionals had spoken to her about what she's doing, she will do what the professionals have told her. So I trusted that.
Yes.
That's the reason why I agreed that she goes through it.
Yes.
But also, she's fortunate in the sense that even at her overweight, at her 50 kgs plus,
Yeah.
she's always been a bubbly person. So she could cope, whether it was facade or it was her way of coping. She actually did very well because I took her to a lot of therapy in the beginning, but it was for me therapy around the fact that she is now having a broken family than it was about the emotional feeling that we talked about
Yes.
during and after the
Yes.
surgery itself, that
Yeah.
there was a deeper emotional issue that she was handling, which
Yeah.
is the environment that we had put her in as
Yeah.
parents.
Yes. Yes. So now, as a parent, realizing the damage, that the toxicity caused, or the consequences. How what thoughts do you have around, you know, decision making as parents when there is that kind of a situation?
I think the responsibility we have as parents is to realize that children don't bring themselves to life.
Yes.
And therefore, it is what it is for them because they're born into these situations.
Yes.
And therefore, we have to think about them. And Abu, I think she has touched on the fact that we spent the better part of our lives trying to protect her from an environment that she could see.
Yes.
But we didn't realize that she's growing. She's an old soul, she's right. We
Yeah.
didn't realize that she was going through her own stuff and she was seeing the things that we're hiding.
Yeah.
And we probably contributed to the problem because now she doesn't have somebody to share and to talk to. And I come from a very traditional home. My parents were quite old, and
Yeah.
therefore, a lot of things are not said to children,
Mm.
and therefore we never had the opportunity to discuss what
Mm.
it is that was really affecting her. And I
Yes.
got to know more about what she felt
Yeah.
when I was in separation.
Yes.
That's when she began to open up about the fact that I could see from a very early age that you guys should have done this differently because it definitely was not working and you don't know how much you affected us. It didn't affect her only, it affected all
Yes.
of them differently.
Yes.
So if you ask me, should I have done it differently?
Yeah.
Yes, I should have done it differently.
What would we have done differently?
I identified Abu's talent when she was 4.
Yeah.
I realized at the age of 4 that she was an actor.
Yeah.
I had an opportunity to go and work in New York, New Jersey for a whole operation, deja vu, because I
Yeah.
ended up in one later in life. And at that point, I was tempted to actually take the offer, because it was closer to where the action of art is, and
Yeah.
she could have
Yes.
acted early.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest regret I think that I have, is that maybe her career would have moved faster than it
Yes.
has.
Yes. But I'm asking in the context of the toxicity, though, what would you have done differently?
Left.
Yeah.
I should have left early.
Yeah.
I
Buthelele.
said that if she had come to me when I was 10, as she did with my sister when she was 10, I would
Yeah.
have said, let's get out of here.
Okay. So abantwana, when already there was no future in that thing, emthatweni, and wena usahleli kuwo, so are you convinced now, mhlawumbe, had you made a decision earlier that would have benefited them?
Well, life is selfish
Yeah. Yes.
because, and now that I'm reflecting at it, the answer is yes.
The wisdom, yeah, review mirror.
The rearview mirror says to me, yes, I should have done it earlier, but was I ready? No.
Yes.
Because nobody gets married to get divorced. You know it because you've been there, right?
Yes.
So it's a combination of those things. And I was also carrying my own guilt because I've always been very busy. I induced to Abu and left her when she was 10 days. Singapore when she was 10 days old. So you also carry the guilt that maybe I focused on my career, and I gave them a lot of love, and I protected them a lot. So I thought I thought I was doing my part, but I
Or
didn't
maybe,
realize.
or maybe compensated a lot materially as well. Because sometimes, as parents who are very busy, we tend to compensate with materials. I see it a lot at the school where my daughter goes. Some parents who are very busy, you know, they compensate with materials and money and all of that.
I'm very strict with money. I was pocket money was
So doesn't think that is true.
no, she knows. I was pocket money only jumped from 600 rands 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So I'm very strict with money. I'm very loving, I'm very giving, but I'm also very strict with money. So because my parents taught me that, so I did not actually use money to cover for things. I didn't consciously realize that they were. I knew they were suffering because I was suffering. But the reality of it is, I actually was not those kind of parents who actually used money to close the gap.
Lovely.
I used love to close the gap.
Yes. No, that's good. That's good. And I was just commenting when I was not judging you, please.
I'm not taking it as a judgment. It's important even for parents listening, because you are right. There's a category of parents who we had a ledger because I'm an accountant.
Yes.
So I kept half the pocket money and gave them half the pocket money, and we did reconciliations every 6 months.
Yeah.
So if they lost things at school, they paid for them with the money I save.
Yeah.
So money was just not in the game for me.
Yes.
But yeah, so I used other methods maybe to compensate.
Yeah.
But deep down, I know that when I listen to them talk now, and the therapy that they are going through at different stages of their lives, I know for a fact that I could have cut it short, and I didn't. That's a regret that I carry. Yeah.
So, advice to other parents who may be going through something like flogging a dead horse. What advice would you give?
When you are in an environment like we were in, you identify it late that it's actually problematic.
Yeah.
Because I had a colleague when I was doing my articles at Ernst Young who bought flowers every Monday morning for his wife. And I used to say he's such a loving guy. And then one day he came to me and he said, I'm getting a divorce. And I said, what do you mean? Because you buy flowers every Monday. And I'm thinking your wife is very lucky. And he said, no, I never bought flowers out of love. I was buying flowers to apologize because I love sport. And every weekend I was absent. And on Monday, it's hell at home.
Yeah.
So I use flowers to compensate. So sometimes you don't realize that you are deep into it because of the apologies and the things and the good things that happen. It's a balance because in real terms, toxic as it was, I think I did say that alcohol played a big role. So when alcohol is not there, you actually have this pleasure. So therefore you keep thinking it's going to get better.
Yes. Yes. No, thank you, Nosimo. I think I must thank you for allowing her also to actually come and share her story with me, but also being there just to give a as you said, Danam, the corner. It's very, very important. I think the lesson here is it's never too late to actually, turn around situations. And it doesn't help. It does not help to focus a lot on the past. Learn from the past and make decisions about the future. And try and deal with any negative emotions from the past, so that as you face the future, you can do so, you know, without being confused or confusing the situation with the children. I think for me, what I like about the story of Abu, much as she has now decided to confront it, and she's dealing with the root causes in her way, but you are there to actually, to support her, and as the rest of the family, you are doing that. So it's so important for her journey to know that there is a parent that is there. But at a certain point, obviously, I mean, I'm not a therapist, but at a certain point, she may also need to look at or be assisted around normalizing the relationship with the other parent as well. When I say normalizing, dealing with issues from that side, but it's something that a therapist, will decide when would that happen. Because I know my sister, at a certain point, she had a lot of anger issues against my dad. And those anger issues, they continued until she was at varsity and even after she qualified. And that affected her in terms of her relationship with people of the opposite sex. Up until at a certain point, she had to, be assisted and also have an opportunity to have a one-on-one with my dad. And after such, the relationship improved. By the time my dad passed, they had a good relationship with my with my younger sister. So what I'm trying to say, at some point, that will need, to be considered, but baby steps. Don't flood when it needs. When I say so. So I want to thank you so much, Abu, for sharing your story. Many people maybe did not even know or believe that there is something that is called, food addiction. And out of this conversation here to today, people now know there is something called food addiction, and you can get help, when you have that. And that's very, very important. um you know um just a little bit, you know one would ask, but why is food giving people a pleasure and bafilishe ngcono? There is a certain part of our brain, that deals with the reward system, where it produces certain chemicals when you feel better. Yeah, I mean, that would make you feel better, you know. And that part is a very, very powerful part of the brain, you know. So it's always important then that when people are dealing with this issue, they don't just look at it superficially. They deal with the root causes, assisted by people who are experts in this area. So I'm encouraging you, Abu, not to slack on your time with your therapist. It's still going to be a long journey, but take every day, every week, every month. I'm not saying go every day. I'm saying in terms of progress, you know, it will get better as long as you also realize that you can't do it on your own, and like your mom says, you listen to professional advice. Please continue to do so. It can only get better from this point. And where you feel, you know, things are not going so well, talk to your mom, talk to your siblings. You are all in this boat together, but reacting differently. But tomorrow will be better than today,
Yes.
and you take it like that. I like your bubbly personality. I like the
Thank
fact that you are, in your, young adult, age, but you are that, mature soul, old soul that they're talking about, and you've decided to confront issues, and you're making progress, and may you continue to make that progress. a lot of people have gained from your experiences of 21 years of age. You know, you are only 21, but you've shared stuff that some people age 50, 60, you know, have not been able to deal with. So you have so many life lessons to share. So it's so important to know that, and again, I'm going to look at it now more from a spiritual point. Some of the things that happen to us are actually directing us to some of the things that we are here on earth to do. So this journey that you went through will certainly make you different from any other actor or any other musician. And your creativity may lie on some of your life experiences, because you don't have to be faking anything. Some things, you know, are uniquely your own experiences, and your creativity comes out of that. And I'm sure your music will heal many people, because it will be based on real experiences of life. All right.
I receive.
Yes, I'm very sure of that. I'm very sure of that. So please continue on your journey. And when I watched your thingy 2 weeks ago, it was not only about music, but actually acting. So you need to combine both of those skills, you know, because you were singing, but you were also acting. You were, you know, you gave us a total thing, you know, and you just left us hanging. So I'm looking forward to next year's one, you know, year 3. I'm looking forward to that. But for now, you are on the right track. You are doing so well, and please continue. And please continue also with your professionals, you know, who are assisting you. Never, never, don't drop them, because that's the support you need. And the family, obviously, they've got no choice but to support you, the family, you know. With those words, Sisi, what would you want to say to the parents now? Message for the parents now, not your mom. Message to the parents who are watching, based on your experiences to date.
I think two of the things that are very important that I tell a lot of parents who I get to talk to is that as parents, I think you need to give your child the opportunity to say no. And by that, I mean, rather than, you know, my mom spoke about subtly putting me on diets and stuff, rather than coming up to me directly and being like, you have this problem, and letting the child be angry at them or whatever, because the child's going to get over it. They have nowhere else to go. You're the parent, you know. So give your child the opportunity to say no, to help that you know they need. Because I think if my mom or, you know, my dad had given me the opportunity to say no, you know, however many years ago when we had left our environment, I would have been further along in my journey. And I don't regret, or I'm not upset, and I don't resent anyone. But, you know, intervention would have happened earlier if I was given the opportunity to say no to help. And I think one of the other things is that whatever you know your friends can see, your children can also see. So let them know that they're not experiencing whatever it is they're experiencing alone. Because loneliness and fear and all of that, it can cause a lot of problems in the long run that aren't just, you know, food addiction or anything like that. So I think those are the two things that I want parents to know.
Yeah. And young kids who've gone through similar experiences, like you, who may still be contemplating focusing on the root causes, what message do you have for them?
It's not always easy to talk to your parents, because not all families are as supportive as my family. But if you can, seek help. and like it's difficult to sort of say you have a problem or say that you're going through a difficult time, but things can definitely improve when you've opened up about it. Don't be scared to go to your parent, and don't be scared to go to an older sibling or a guardian of any kind, because someone might have the answer for you. And you know, even if you're feeling alone, chances are you're not. And it's just your parents trying to protect you or anything like that. And so don't be scared to step forward and say, I'm going through this, I need your help. Because it will change the game.
Yeah. Now we are about to wrap up, but I've just gone to my Facebook page just to see the comments from some of the people who are watching. You know, there is a message from, all right, great interview, Doc. That's Dr. Bunolo Mushiana. She's a specialist dermatologist in Dainfen. And then Dr. Pinky Mbambisa. She is a senior medical colleague from MTATA, married to Dr. Zweldumile Mbambisa, a gynecologist MTATA. She says, I admire you all, Abu and Mom, for your openness, and thank you, Pele, for a great interview, which has deep lessons on parenting. She also says, I respect your honesty and wisdom, Abu's mom. That is to Unosipo. She also says, power of personal responsibility. You are a star, Abu. And then a colleague of mine here at work, Nwabisa, she's one of my support staff. She says, we often focus on alcohol abuse, etc., but food is also an issue when excessively indulged. We should not shy away from this reality because people are living with diseases that are influenced by diet merely due to the lack of knowledge and ignorance. This was much needed conversation, Doc. And then she also said something like, this topic has emphasized the significance of taking accountability for your own actions. Yes, it's often easy to shift the blame. Yes, at times there's almost always a person to blame. We find comfort in that fact and excuse our actions, which are sometimes not beneficial to our holistic health. Addiction is something that needs one to face head on and admit, and only then one can conquer it. But during the stage of shared blame, we often fall back into it worse than before. I appreciate how the mother has taken on an open-minded attitude to support her child without judgment and admit her input. Lovely conversation that most Black parents need to watch so that they can learn how to deal with such issues. Those are just some of the comments from the people who are watching. So like I said, your story, Abu, Diabulel, right? Remember, your name is Ayabulel, right? Now,
Yes.
this time around, it's me, Diabulela. Thank you very much. In Afrikaans, baya danki, ngesizulu, ngiyabonga, you know?
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
In French, we say merci beaucoup. The pronunciation may not be right, but merci beaucoup. And in Spanish, gracias, you know. Yeah, so basically, I am so thankful for you taking your time to open up about, you know, what drove you to being a food addict and the steps you are taking to actually reverse the situation. It's a journey, but take every day as it comes, take every week as it comes, take every year as it comes. It will get better. You've acknowledged the problem, now you are dealing with it. So please continue on that journey. If you were not a 21-year-old, keep walking, but now that's a slogan for another beverage that shouldn't be drunk by people of your age, you know.
I mean, if I wanted to buy it, I could.
It's not if I want to say goodbye. Thank you very much for being there, you know, for the whole conversation. It helped Abu to relax, to know that you are there. But also, thank you so much. If you didn't want her to share the story, I'm sure you could have prevailed on her. but you are not that type of parent. So thank you. So many parents have learned a lot from your openness. So ndiyabulela kakhulu sis. Thank you.
Thank you, Talk. Thank you very much.
All right, lovely, lovely, lovely. Ningandilibali kulo nyaka uzayo ke when you've got the third year one, ndifuna uyobukela i-performance ka-third year. Okay.
You are invited.
Okay,
it's actually, I think it's actually a build-up, Doc, from this to the third year story, because I think you said that she robbed us in the first one. She held back a bit.
Yes.
Today she opened up a little bit more because it's a scary area to go to the root cause.
Yeah.
So it will actually just make your story better next year, I think. But more than anything else, I hope other parents and other children going through the same can benefit from the life that we've just shared.
Ndiyabulela kakhulu sisi wam, man. Thank you, thank you, thank you very much. Good night to everybody. Good night to all our viewers. I really enjoyed this interview. It was a difficult interview because of the nature of the subject, but Abu was a good guest. She had a bit of anxiety at the beginning, but like a pro, you know, she just decided, I'll pretend as if I'm on stage and I'll just give it like that. And you did well. So thank you very much, Abu. And thank you very much to everybody. Jabule.